All right, what is up, everybody? We are back with another edition of Everyday Hoops. Hope you guys are having a good one. Today, I'm doing my 2025 NBA mock draft. The draft's tomorrow. Very excited for it. I'm going to be giving my mock draft here in today's video on what I guess I would do, what I think these teams would do tomorrow. Thank guys for the views on the videos and the shorts recently. I really appreciate it. If you do like the content around here, consider subscribing, liking, turn on notifications, doing all stuff like that. I'd really appreciate it. It really helps out a lot. Link to my Twitter and all that stuff down in the description below. And yeah, don't waste any more of your time. Let's get right into it. So, getting it started with the first pick in the 2025 NBA draft, the Dallas Mavericks select Cooper Flagg from Duke. Pretty much a no-brainer. I mean, we all knew whoever was getting this number 1 overall pick, it was going to be Flagg. He had an amazing freshman season at Duke. A really, really intriguing and good prospect. You know, he's got the two-way ability. The defense looks very, very intriguing, you know, with his size and his length. Even though he's maybe a little bit smaller with, you know, the official heights and weights and stuff that people expected, still shouldn't discourage you. You know, still a really good wing that can guard and cover up a lot of ground. And then offensively, he's got a lot of intriguing skill set as well with his athleticism. Just a really good high IQ basketball player. You know, makes the right plays, makes the right passes. His shooting got better as the season's gone on. I think that could be something that could really work for him. And yeah, it looks like he can be like one of the more impactful players in the league on both ends, one of the better two-way players in the game. So yeah, Flagg to Dallas, pretty much no doubt. With the second pick in the 2025 NBA draft, the San Antonio Spurs select Dylan Harper from Rutgers. Another pretty easy selection. Number 1 and number 2 should be pretty easy. No matter if the Spurs have this pick by the time the pick is up or not, Dylan Harper should be the number 2 overall pick. This is a big guard that just I'm a big fan of. You know, the pace that he plays with, I really like. He's a really good ball handler, really good at getting to the basket, finishing at the basket. Just a really good offensive game. And that's something you see from a guard that has the ball in his hands as much that often, you know, especially at how young he is at just 19 years old. Like, this guy has a lot of potential to be one of the better guards in the NBA. You know, he could score, really solid passer. You know, again, his creating ability, being able to get to the basket, you know, will hit with his size, using his size to his advantage at about almost 6'5"-ish. Like, Dylan Harper is really, really good. And going to a Spurs organization that already, you know, they have their guards, they have De'Aaron, they have Stephon Castle, but why not get another guy in Dylan Harper that, you know, depending on how things go, maybe you can flip him for something else. You could bring him into the organization. Maybe, you know, he finds a way to work out over there. The Spurs are a team that I trust more than many other teams in developing guys like this. So yeah, why not just get more, you know, add more to the pot with San Antonio and bring in Dylan Harper, I think can be a very, very good player in this league. With the third pick of the 2025 NBA draft, the Philadelphia 76ers select VJ Edgecombe out of Baylor. This is kind of, I feel like, where the draft starts. You know, like 3 on, who knows what can happen if the Sixers still have this pick or not. But VJ Edgecombe, originally, a lot of people thought maybe Ace Bailey, but of course, we have that whole situation going on, and they definitely could still take Ace Bailey. I would not be surprised if the Sixers still take Ace Bailey, but VJ Edgecombe, I think, is another very intriguing prospect. He's a guy, very athletic, potentially the most athletic player in this draft. Defensively, a lot of potential as well with his size, his combination of size, strength, athleticism, and all that stuff. I think he could be a really solid defender, athletic. Of course, the jump shot is going to be the big determining factor on how good he can be in this league. But he gets to go to a situation in Philadelphia where he doesn't really have to do too much right away. He can learn. You know, where you have Maxey, George, Embiid, you know, a team that's still trying to compete right now. I think whoever they end up picking with this pick, whether it's Edgecombe, Ace Bailey, if they go a different direction, they're going to be, well, at first they're going to be like, dang, I get to go to this team. I'm not going to be starting right away, all this stuff. But it might help in the long run because now you can kind of learn and, you know, not have to be thrusted into the spotlight right away. You can kind of sit back, develop your game, learn from so many of these different guys. So then when your time does come and your opportunity does come, you can come right in and be a really good player. So I think VJ Edgecombe could really help out. Could really be a good piece for the Sixers team. Help a lot on the defensive end. You know, just makes them younger and faster, more athletic as well. And if his shot isn't falling, it doesn't really matter too much because you have so many guys around you that you can help with and a lot of guys you can throw in his spot. So I think Edgecombe could be a very solid pick, in this draft for the Sixers. I can definitely see him in Philly, being someone that can kind of help out right away, in very limited time. With the fourth pick in the 2025 NBA draft, the Charlotte Hornets select Con Knipple out of Duke. For the Hornets, here at this pick, obviously they would have liked it a little bit higher, but I think Con Knipple can be a really good piece for this Hornets team. I feel like this Hornets team, the thing that they miss with these drafts and all that stuff is getting just really solid, good basketball players with a high floor. I think Con Knipple is that. He's one of the more, I feel like, maybe safer prospects up this high in the draft. He's a really good three-point shooter. Had a really good shooting season last year at Duke. Solid defender, makes the right plays. Just as a guy that you can feel comfortable with throwing him on the court and he'll figure out how to be impactful. Like what it's either if he's shooting the ball, if he's defending, if he's passing, if he's even putting the ball on the floor a little bit. You just feel comfortable with him, and I think he's a really good connecting piece next to LaMelo and Brandon Miller when they're healthy, and that could be a really good, thing right there for the Hornets starting to build out this team and trying to reach the next level. I think these are the type of picks that you need to make. Guys that can come in and you just feel comfortable with what they can do on the court. While also he's a guy that has a little bit of potential. During the season he got more comfortable with putting the ball on the floor and comfortable getting to the basket. Like doing all things like that. And it's also a good pick because I feel like he doesn't really need to reach, he doesn't need to become a 20, 25 point scorer. He never needs to become a crazy bucket getter. As long as he can just fit next to LaMelo and Brandon Miller and be a good player for them on the court whenever they need him to, I think that'll work out just fine. So I think this is a great pick for the Hornets if they do make this pick because Knipple is a guy that is probably going to be around in the NBA for a pretty long time. With the game he has, I think the Hornets need to start getting more of these players, on their team to try to reach the next level. With the fifth pick in the 2025 NBA draft, the Utah Jazz select Ace Bailey from Rutgers. Bailey has been someone talked about a lot over the past few weeks with, his pre-draft stuff. Hasn't really done any workouts or meetings with any team, maybe trying to position himself to get to a certain situation, which maybe has him falling a little bit. But the Jazz at 5 end up taking him here in my mock draft. Bailey is super talented. You can't take that away from him. Super talented wing that is when it comes to shot making and bucket getting, probably the best in this draft. He takes a lot of maybe crazy shots, but he also makes a lot of crazy shots as well with his good size and his athleticism. Very, very athletic. And that combination is very, very intriguing to a lot of different teams. And for Utah, team that still has a lot of question marks, still has a lot of things of like, okay, what position do we really need? Is this guy going to be a part of the future, or is this guy going to be part of the future? How good is this guy actually? And they just have a lot going on right now at Utah. There's a lot of stuff there, but it's nothing's really concrete yet. And I think if they do end up selecting Ace Bailey and he's willing to come to Utah, I think he can really help. I don't want to say accelerate. I'm not saying he's going to come in and all of a sudden they're going to be a 30-something win team, but I think he'd come in and really establish himself early because I don't think there's anyone really taking the ball out of his hands in Utah besides like Lauri Markkanen. And I think I think the Jazz don't really have many wings like him. All their kind of guys that are supposed to be scorers or like smaller guards. They don't really have a big wing that is really like defined over there in Utah. So I think Ace Bailey has kind of a path to being one of the like pillars of the Utah Jazz over the next few years if they do end up taking him. I think this is a really good get for Utah. When they fell in the draft to 5, despite having the worst record in the league, they still end up getting, a talented guy that's probably was consensus top 3 before all this stuff started happening. With the 6th pick in the 2025 NBA draft, the Washington Wizards select Derek Queen from Maryland. The Maryland kid gets to stay close to home. Queen is a really intriguing player. One of the more intriguing players, I feel like, in this class. A big man that's, not the biggest of big men. He's only like 6'9", 6'10"-ish. But he's 20. He's young. And he's got a really interesting game. Like, he's a big man that has a pretty solid handle. Can score the ball really well. Really good passer. A decent shooter. Like, he's got a really like well-rounded offensive game for a big, you know? The only concerns are about, kind of like how does he fit in the modern NBA a little bit with being a big that's, you know, he's not a 7-footer. Maybe he's not a guy that you run your offense around. And if he's not going to be an elite defender or rebounder or anything like that, then how does he really fit kind of in the game? Is he as big? Is he a power forward? But he's not an amazing 3-point shooter. So he's not going to be a stretch four. So it's just, that's really the only concern. But I personally feel like Derek Queen is going to find his way in the league. And I think going to Washington, I think this is a really good pickup for the Wizards. I think the Wizards have something kind of brewing over there with a lot of really good young players with Sarr, Koulibaly, Keyshawn George, Bub Carrington. They got a lot of really solid things going on in Washington. I think you add in Derek Queen, I think that can really only help accelerate this team with, Sarr and Queen as your front court of the future. Sarr being more of the defender and the stretch five. That also maybe takes a little bit more of offensive pressure off of Sarr. He can focus a little bit more on defense. Now you have Derek Queen who can focus more on the offense, and that can really, I feel like, click together. And I think he's one of the more, after the top five, one of the more talented players left. And I think the Wizards are still a team that kind of needs to draft kind of best guy available and just go pure talent. And I think Derek Queen really fits that. So I don't know. There's something about Derek Queen to the Wizards that I really, really like. With the 7th pick in the 2025 NBA draft, New Orleans Pelicans select Trey Johnson from Texas. This is one of the more interesting picks in this draft. I'm not talking about the play. I'm talking about the pick of the Pelicans having 7. Because I feel like they could truly go many different ways. Like this was a pick that I was really looking at, and I was like, dang, like I could see 5 different people getting drafted right here for New Orleans because they're just in a really weird situation where they just, Joe Dumars is in there now making decisions. They had a really bad year last year. Are they still going to try to compete? Or are they going to trade a lot of their guys and maybe try to go for a retool or a rebuild? Like, we don't know. We still kind of don't know what's going on in New Orleans or what the team's going to look like. So this pick is very, very interesting. But I decided, you know what? We're going to go best talent available, and we're going with Trey Johnson. This guy is a bucket getter. He's a pure bucket getter. A guard that can score in many different ways. 3-level, he can get to the rim. Well, maybe not amazing at getting to the rim. He's definitely probably more of a, shooting score than I'm gonna get to the bucket and ones and stuff. He's definitely more of a perimeter type of scorer, but he does it very well. He shot the ball really well last year at Texas. He was the main offense at Texas, the main ball handler a lot of times, and it worked out pretty well for him. A lot better than maybe a lot of people expected. And he's just a guy that I feel like anywhere he's gonna go, he can be put in a situation where he can, go get buckets. And for New Orleans, a team that doesn't really have that's a really up in air right now, where no one really knows what the direction is, why not just go with best player available and go Trey Johnson, a guy that could come in, and no matter if he's playing next to Zion and McCollum and Trey Murphy, he can maybe find his way in there in terms of being an extra ball handler, an extra scorer, and bring some more perimeter game to this team, especially around Zion Williamson, who likes to attack the basket. Or if they do blow everything up, and you're trading everybody, Trey Johnson maybe won't be like the superstar of your team, but you have a pretty nice start in Trey Johnson where you can put him in a different position to maybe kind of, I don't know about succeed a whole lot early, but you give him the confidence early of being, all right, go ahead and get your buckets and learn how to create your shot at the NBA level. So I think the Pelicans, again, this is a very interesting pick. I don't know what they're really going to do. I can see them going so many different directions, but I just went kind of safe a little bit with best player available, and that was Trey Johnson. With the 8th pick in the 2025 NBA draft, the Brooklyn Nets select Jeremiah Fears out of Oklahoma. Fears is a guy that really burst onto the scene last year at Oklahoma. Still only 18 years old, might be a little bit smaller, but can score. Guy that can really get to the rim, really good ball handler, getting to the basket, athletic, has decent playmaking, and just the upside and the potential, being still only just 18 years old and having that great of a season as he did as a freshman. And when you're the Brooklyn Nets, a team that kind of is going into a rebuild, doesn't really have much going on, why not take a chance on an 18-year-old that has this much potential? You don't really have a lot going on in your guard situation right now. Well, everything's kind of up in the air right now for the Brooklyn Nets Who knows what the team's gonna look like with trades and all this stuff. So taking a chance, I would like them to take a chance on a guy like Jeremiah Fears, where he can come in right away, and he could kind of start playing early. You give him a chance really early on to try to learn, develop his game, and I think he could be something really, really solid. For Brooklyn. Again, they're a team that doesn't really have much going on right now. So why not take a chance on a young 18-year-old with this much talent and potential? With the ninth pick in the 2025 NBA draft, the Toronto Raptors select Kaman Maluach from Duke. I think this is just another kind of pick that falls right into the Raptors' laps. The Raptors also are a team that has a lot of stuff going on. You have Scotty, RJ, BI, quickly, so many perimeter guys that can create and score and do all that stuff, and still trying to figure out what pieces are working, what pieces don't work. You have Grady Dick still, like, just a lot going on with Toronto. But you take a chance or take a swing on a guy like Maluach, I think it's perfect. This is the type of guy that the Raptors love to draft. He's still only 18 years old, 7-footer. Think is going to be a really good big in this league. Like 7'6" wingspan. Defensively, block a lot of shots, was really, really amazing defensively last year. A lob threat, and doesn't have to do too much. Like, you come right into a situation in Toronto where you have so many guys that can feed him the ball and give him the ball, and so he doesn't have to come in right away and be this monster offensively. All he has to do is come in and protect the rim early and rebound. That's all. And then once in a while catch a lob here and there, but that's really all. He doesn't have to worry about being a big factor on the offensive end. He could come right in right away and can really establish himself on defense first. So I think this is dang near pretty much a perfect situation for Maluach. I think it's an amazing pick for the Raptors, getting a guy that can come in and fit right in no matter what's happening. No matter if you're training away these guys or keeping all these guys together, he can come right in and can fit no matter what. With the 10th pick in the 2025 NBA draft, the Phoenix Suns select Colin Murray Boyles out of South Carolina. CMB. He was a guy that I really liked last year. Came back to South Carolina, had a really solid sophomore year, and now is really rising up draft boards, potentially being kind of confirming himself around the lottery. He's a guy that maybe doesn't have the prettiest game, isn't the most eye popping. Oh my God, this guy could be a superstar in this league. Maybe not that type of game, but he's a really, really good defender. That really helps the Suns because the Suns, horrible defensive team, and I assume the Suns still want to be kind of competitive next year with Devin Booker and Jalen Green and all that stuff. So he could bring a really good defensive factor to this team, and offensively a very intriguing game as well. Very high IQ guy that can pass the ball. Really solid offensive playmaker. We've seen a lot of a lot of people are going to talk about Draymond Green and stuff like that. He's just Anthony Mason, even I saw as a thing. But he's just one of those guys that, has a very unique game, with his size, kind of being only like a 6'6", 6'7" power forward. It's kind of like the position he has to play, but with elite kind of defensive, you think you can project him to be a really, really good defender in the league, a really solid playmaker as well, can really work it in the post too with his game. The big question obviously is going to be the jump shot and what truly is his position offensively. Is he a forward? Does he eventually have to translate to a really small ball big? Can he become a good three-point shooter? That's going to be questions. But I think for the Suns, you take a chance here with a guy like this that's still only 20 years old. I think has a really, has potential. I think he has potential with the game he has and with the things I've seen at South Carolina. I think he has potential to be a really good player and a really impactful winning player in this league. I think that's what the Suns kind of need right now, going into this kind of new-ish era with no Booker no Durant getting off of Beal, and maybe putting Devin Booker surrounding him with a lot of younger pieces, bringing in a younger coach. I think that's what the Suns are kind of looking at right now. I think Colin Murray Boyles can help do that by establishing himself on the defensive end, which is something you desperately need if you're Phoenix, while also not having to put too much on his offensive play early because you have Devin Booker and Jalen Green, two guys that can go get buckets. So he doesn't have to come in right away and figure it out offensively. He can establish himself defensively first and then eventually get better and better on the offensive end as time goes on. With the 11th pick in the 2025 NBA draft, the Portland Trail Blazers select Carter Bryant out of Arizona. The Blazers are a team that they have a lot going on right now at a lot of different positions. You have Scoot, you have Shane Sharp, you have Toumani Camara, Denny Avdia, Donovan Clingan. I feel like every position you have one or two guys that you hope can really pop. So for Portland, this is another intriguing pick. But I'm going with Carter Bryant because I think he's a guy that could come right in and fit in right away. I think whoever gets Carter Bryant is going to get a really good player. You could just tell from watching him play and seeing all the things that he has that he's going to be a really good player that's going to be around for a pretty long time. He's got the wing archetype of 3 and D, really solid defender, really good wing, 7-foot wingspan, good size, frame, good defensive capabilities, really athletic, can space the floor, hit the three. Just a guy that you just can feel comfortable with, putting him on the floor, and he'll figure it out. Like, I think at the very least, he'll just be a good role player. He'll just be your average, at the very, very least, I feel like he'll just be your average wing that you just throw in, hit some shots, and guard some people. But he also is still 19 years old and still has the capabilities of jumping a little bit and being a premier wing, premier two-way wing in this league. I think Portland would be a good spot for him where he could just come in, doesn't have to do too much right away. I feel like he can come in and can complement with wherever he got, whatever, like whoever's on the court. If he's out there with Denny and Tumani, he could just be a floor spacer. And also that defensive, like that perimeter defense would be insane with those three on the court. If he's next to Scoot and maybe playing a little bit more of the two, he can shoot, but also maybe put the ball on the floor a little bit. He can guard the wing. Like, I feel like no matter what combination of lineups you can throw out there for the Blazers, you could put Carter Bryant in and he'll figure it out and he'll make an impact in some way. So I think this is just maybe a little bit of a safer pick for Portland that can also maybe work out, and maybe he could be one of the kind of pillars for the Blazers if they continue to get better over the next few years. With the 12th pick in the 2025 NBA draft, the Chicago Bulls select Nique Clifford from Colorado State. I'm a big fan of Clifford. I think he's a really good player and can really find his role in the NBA. Kind of a Swiss Army knife wing that could do a little bit of everything. He can score. He can put the ball on the floor. He can shoot the three. He can guard different people. He can play on the ball, off the ball. He's just a guy that, and like you can put him in any kind of position, and he'll figure out how to make an impact at some point. I think the Bulls are a team that their direction is still kind of up in the air, but it's the Bulls, so they'll probably try to make a play-in appearance again and be the 10th seed and win 37 games. But I think Nique Clifford can really come in and complement. He's an older guy, 23 years old. He can come in, and I feel like whoever is out there, if he's playing the guard, he can do it. If he's playing the wing, because the Bulls have so many guards, he can be a wing. And I feel like he's just one of those guys that the Bulls don't really have. They either have guards that can shoot and score, or they have wings that are just like out there for defense. Like, they don't really have a combination. I think Nique Clifford can really be a connecting piece with whoever he has on the court, and he's something that the Bulls don't really have, which is just a really good high IQ basketball player on the wing that can really transform his game into any different part. But I think Nique Clifford, no matter where he goes, if he goes to Chicago here, if he goes earlier, later, Nique Clifford, I think, is a really good player, and I think wherever he goes, he'll be able to find his way in the league. Like, I'm really confident that he can figure it out. But going to Chicago, I think it's an interesting spot that I don't think I've seen many people like mock Clifford to Chicago. But I just feel like if he does end up going to Chicago, Chicago would love to have a player like him. I feel like they don't really have many players at like the things that he can do and he can bring to the table. With the 13th pick in the 2025 NBA draft, the Atlanta Hawks select Rasheer Fleming from St. Joseph's. I feel like I've been talking about this pick when I did other mock drafts before, early in the season, all this stuff. Like, I don't know. I just really like the fit of Rasheer Fleming in Atlanta. He's a guy that maybe isn't the most popular name around draft people. If you don't know the draft and all that stuff, you're probably like, who the heck is this dude? But I think he's a really good player, really intriguing player. Guy about 6'8", 6'9", a huge 7'5" wingspan, and just a big 3-and-D forward. Very athletic, really good shot blocker, gets all around the court defensively. Also shot dang near 40% from three. So you talk about, players that teams would want and like players that teams really like are desperate for. Rasheer Fleming has the archetype and build of one of those guys. Especially with his 6'8", being 6'8", 6'9", with 7'5" wingspan. Like, usually guys like this are more like 6'6", wings that can play the two. No, this is a big guy, a power forward, small forward, that could be a 3-and-D. And I think for the Atlanta Hawks, building around Trae Young, these are the pieces that you need around Trae Young. These are the ideal type of archetype of guys you put around Trae Young. Big wings that can guard, and when Trae Young finds it for open shots, they can knock him down. So I don't know. I just get a feeling this is like a perfect pairing. Whether it's this pick, the Hawks have a later pick in the first round if he's still there. Like I just think Rasheer Fleming in Atlanta just is a perfect match made in heaven. But yeah, Rasheer Fleming, a guy that I think really can help this Atlanta Hawks. I think the Hawks would be crazy to kind of, well, maybe not crazy. I don't know, because there's a lot of different people in this draft. But I don't know. I just get the feeling like this can be a really nice, pairing with Rasheer Fleming in Atlanta with Trae Young. With the 14th pick in the 2025 NBA draft, the San Antonio Spurs select Noah Essengue from France. Now, this one is probably one I'm going to have to explain a little bit. The Spurs, you have, I don't know if they're maybe in full-on win-now mode. Even though you have Wemby, De'Aaron Fox, they missed out on Kevin Durant. Giannis isn't going anywhere, so maybe they're not going full-on win now. So maybe, if things could change with this pick, I definitely, was leaning towards maybe giving them more of a NBA ready, maybe wing type of guy. But then I decided, you know what? Why not for the Spurs? Why not take a chance on Essengue? I think Essengue is going to be a guy that a team is going to take a chance on. I will not be surprised if he goes in the lottery and a team takes a big swing on him. Especially, I think recently his name has been coming up a lot more and rising up draft boards because he's still playing over there in France. Because now they're in like their playoffs and all that stuff. But Essengue is a guy that super raw. He's 6'9". He's one of the youngest players in this draft. He's only 18 years old still. Very interesting game. Very athletic. Very long, lanky athlete. He runs the floor and very, very well. Has really good defensive potential and upside, and he's a guy that can really be versatile on the defensive end. And when you're San Antonio and you already have Wemby and you have so many guys there, Essengue is a guy that doesn't have to come in right away and be, like a key player on this team. He can kind of be in the background learning. And you think about the defense next to Essengue and Wemby with that length on the court, because I don't know Essenge's wingspan fully, but he's very, very long arms. This guy is like very I would guess out of the gas station, they have those like wobbly inflatable things. Like that's what his arms look like. So that defensive, potential of him next to Wemby can be insane. He's a guy that doesn't really need the ball a lot in his hands offensively. He can run the floor. His shooting is a big question mark. Can he be, an amazing shooter? But he's still super young, has a lot of potential. And for the Spurs, who already also took a Dylan Harper early in the draft, you can kind of fall back at 14 and be like, you know what? Why not take a chance on another young guy in Essengue that can really help our team in the future? Maybe him paired next to Wemby could be the ultimate French defensive duo in the future. So definitely maybe not a move that is popular by Essengue to San Antonio, but I think this has the potential to really work out. With the 15th pick in the 2025 NBA draft, the Oklahoma City Thunder select Cedric Coward from Washington State. Crazy that OKC has a pick or this early in the draft, but shout out to Miami Heat for making the playoffs, I guess, because now OKC gets another pick. Cedric Coward has been a guy that has been his name has been buzzing and buzzing and buzzing as the draft process has kept going, and he's really shot up the ranks from being a guy that no one knew about to being a potential lottery pick. But he's a guy that is senior, about almost 22 years old, has taken a long journey here to get to the league. Had a big injury last year that he missed a lot of last season. He played in 5-6 games last year at Washington State. So he's kind of a big question mark. He's a big question mark that no one really knows what he's really going to be, whatever. But you look at what he's got, 6'5" with a 7'2" wingspan. That really stands out. Got the athleticism, long arms, good, solid defensive potential, catch and shoot guy. Like he's just got the potential and the makings of being a solid, winning impact wing in the league. And what better team to take a chance on a big question mark than the Oklahoma City Thunder, because they have everything already. So why not? Let's just take this dude that looks like he could potentially be a really impactful player next to our team. And if he doesn't work out, hey, it's whatever. We have so many other picks that if he works out, great. If he doesn't work out, whatever. OKC just has the potential at 15 to kind of just do whatever they want, because it kind of doesn't matter. But so why not? If there's any team that is, you know, good enough to take the chance on the question mark of Cedric Coward, why not have it be OKC? With the 16th pick in the 2025 NBA draft, the Memphis Grizzlies select Jace Richardson out of Michigan State. Richardson is a guy that kind of came on late at Michigan State. Didn't really start getting real playing time until about halfway through the year. Then he became a starter near the tournament time and all that stuff. But he had a really good freshman year in the limited time he played. He's a small guard. He's still only about like 6 feet, 6'1", smaller guard that is kind of in that weird realm of like, is he a point guard? Is he a shooting guard? Because he's not an insane like playmaker as a point guard, but he's also really small for the two guard position. So it's kind of that's going to be kind of a question up in the air. But I mean, he a really efficient shooting year, shot over 40% from three. Has kind of like that feel for the game, play off the ball and on the ball shooting. Like he just looks like he can be a really solid kind of scoring guard in the league, and he's still only 19 years old, with still again a lot of potential. With we only saw that in that limited amount of time Michigan State. So Memphis, a team that also is kind of a little bit weird up in the air. Now they traded away Desmond Bane. For Memphis, you bring in another guard that can really help the floor spacing of this team. And he doesn't have to come in right away and be a big factor. He can come off the bench and lure behind John Morant and help out with the perimeter shooting. And he can play with Ja. He can play on the bench when Ja goes to the bench. He can handle the ball still. Like he's a very solid player, and it looks like maybe he could be a guy that at college he was good, but in the NBA he looks a lot different in terms of a lot better with more spacing and maybe more opportunity. And just differences between college and the NBA. He could be maybe one of those type of guys. So Memphis is a very interesting pick here that they got in the Desmond Bane trade. I don't really know. They could go, I think, a couple different directions, but I decided to go with Jace Richardson because it's like, hey, why not bring another guard that can really help the perimeter shooting and can be another ball handler for this team. With the 17th pick in the 2025 NBA draft, the Minnesota Timberwolves select Kasparas Jakujonas out of Illinois. A guy that really falls here with Jakujonas. A guy that's probably projected to be a top 10 pick, falls outside the lottery in my mock draft down to 17. And when you're Minnesota there, you take the best player on the board. That also fits. Minnesota, their big kind of question mark has been kind of like putting another guy that can handle the ball next to Anthony Edwards so he doesn't have to do everything. You would maybe like a little bit more of a score, but with the NBA draft, you don't really find that too much. So why not just take best player available and go Jakujonas? He's a point guard that had a really solid year last year at Illinois. He can handle the ball, really good passer and playmaker. Can really kind of be like your lead ball handler, point guard that can, hit that step back. Decent defender, do a couple different things. The big question mark is going to be like his scoring ability at the level. Like, is he actually going to be a bucket getter? Is he going to be, he didn't have a great 3-point shooting last year. Is he a really good 3-point shooter? Is he a guy that can break down someone down and get to the rim and score? But if you're Minnesota, you kind of feel like you don't have to put him in that position right away too early because you still have Mike Conley. You expect Rob Dillingham maybe to take over next year and be a big factor. You still have Anthony Edwards. So he doesn't have to come in right away and be a bucket getter. He can just come in and be a ball handler and kind of set the floor and set the tone when Mike Conley is on the bench and do all that stuff. And then maybe hopefully later down the line, you figure out his scoring ability and all that stuff. But I think this is a position when you're Minnesota. If you get a guy like this still on the board, why not take him? With the 18th pick in the 2025 NBA draft, the Washington Wizards select Yegor Demon out of BYU. Demon's another guy that kind of falls a little bit here. Projected to probably be around lottery-ish pick that falls down to 18 in my mock draft. And I kind of feel the same way about Minnesota that I do, same way with this pick with the Wizards I do with Minnesota on the last pick, where the best player on the board, take him. Washington is a team that, again, like I said earlier, when they picked Derek Queen, they still need talent. And why not take a guy in Demon who is very intriguing? I mean, a 6'8", 6'9" point guard that is an amazing passer, probably maybe the best passer in this draft. Has really solid defensive potential. Can be a guy that can handle the ball, good IQ and all that stuff. The big question is going to be the jump shot. Like he got better as the season went on a little bit later, but still shot very poorly from three. And is he kind of like his scoring ability in general, really, is the big question mark. But if you're Washington, you have a team, you have kind of a, not a hole at point guard. You have kind of Poole, who's more maybe of a two, where you're trying to play in a point guard, but Carrington is still kind of like, is he a point guard, but is he a playmaker? Like, you bring in Denman, a guy who can make plays for others, a guy that you don't really have on your team, like a true playmaker, is what Denman is. But you also have kind of like the patience and the talent around where you're like, hey, we can wait and see how much he can prove because he's still only 19 years old. So I think if you're Washington, you just look and you see this guy who was projected probably about a top 10 pick earlier in the year and probably projected a lottery pick fall at this point, just be like, hey, let's just take him. With the 19th pick in the 2025 NBA draft, the Brooklyn Nets select Thomas Sorber out of Georgetown. Sorber is a freshman with a very, very intriguing game. A big man, 6'9", with a 7'6" wingspan at 19 years old, had a really good freshman year at Georgetown. A guy that's just a high IQ big man, really high IQ big man. Can work in the post, got a big frame, big body, works in the post. A really good defender, a really good athleticism and speed for his size. Really good, screen setter, can rebound, just does a little bit of everything. Really decent passer. Just a very high IQ big man. The big question is going to be the shooting. Is he an actual like good shooter, or can he stretch the floor? Like what is really his offensive game? Is he going to be a back to the basket big, or is he like that's really going to be the big question, is where does he fit on the offensive game in terms of what is his biggest strength there? But I think with Brooklyn being a team that, again, like I said earlier, with their early pick with Jeremiah Fears, where they just have not really much going on right now, and they're kind of in the middle of a rebuild and just need talent. I think Sorbo is one of the more talented players left on the board. You take a big man that you're very intrigued with all the different things he can do, especially being super young at 19 years old, with the body type and his game just looks like, if put him in the right situation, he can really pop. So with Brooklyn, it's just more of like at this point in the draft, a lot of these picks are going to be just like, why not picks? At this point, you're not getting probably most likely you're not getting a superstar that's going to change your franchise. You're just trying to get something that maybe can work. And I think for the Nets here, why not take a guy in Sorber that looks really talented at a very young age, and maybe you can put him in a position to really shine. With the 20th pick in the 2025 NBA draft, the Miami Heat select Walter Clayton Jr. out of Florida. Clayton, the reigning tournament MVP, March Madness tournament MVP at Championship, Florida. And the Miami Heat, I think, goes to a pretty decent situation there. Clayton is a guy that, while he might be undersized at only 6'2", with a 6'4" wingspan, he can really shoot the ball. Really a perimeter creation guy that I think the Heat obviously desperately need. 3-point shooting. Really solid ball handler. It's okay with, shooting it off the dribble and shooting very kind of uncomfortable shots and getting a shot off over, bigger guys. He's shown that he's got confidence. He's 22 years old, so he's a guy that you can kind of throw in already, and he can be comfortable. Already a winner at the college level. So I think this is just a Miami Heat type of pick. A hard-nosed guy that can shoot the ball, really solid defensively, and can come right away and kind of find a role for this team. And these are the kind of picks that the Miami Heat make. I could definitely see the Heat taking a chance on Clayton and taking Clayton because they feel like they're comfortable with him coming in already kind of being a veteran. With the 21st pick in the 2025 NBA draft, the Utah Jazz select Ben Saraf from Israel. Saraf is a guy that is very interesting in this draft. A lefty that really needs the ball, can have the ball in his hands. It can make many things happen. He's 6'5". He can pass the ball very, very well. Makes a lot of crazy passes. Can get to the rim. Really solid ball handler. Like a guy that you put the ball in his hands and he can make things happen. And that's something the Jazz don't really have a lot of. You would think Keontae George, but he's kind of struggled to shoot the ball early in his career. Isaiah Collier is more of a passer right now. Then you have like Sexton and Clarkson, who probably aren't going to be around for that much longer, hopefully. So why not take a risk and a chance on a guy in Sarf that you can get at this point, and maybe he can be a guy that can really blossom over there. The big question is going to be his athleticism. He's not a very big athletic guy, so it's going to be a question mark on, can he kind of get to the basket at the same rate as he does against NBA defenders, and how great is he in terms of a 3-point shooter. But his ability to put the ball in his hands, being crafty with his passing and his ability to get to the basket and his scoring ability, he's one of the better scorers in this draft. So it's kind of like an intriguing pick for Utah, where at this point in the draft, you're like, hey, we don't really have a lot of big abundance of scoring talents. Let's go get a guy that can do that. With the 22nd pick in the 2025 NBA draft, the Atlanta Hawks select Joan Beranger out of France. I really hope I'm saying his name right. I think that's how you say it, but I'm not 100%, but I think that's how you say his name. Beranger is a guy that hasn't really burst onto the scene until very recently. I honestly didn't really know much about him until very recently. But he's someone that's kind of been chewing up draft boards. He is big, 6'11". I don't know exactly what his wingspan is, but it's one of those crazy ones that you're like, oh my goodness. And amazing athleticism. Big, athletic, lanky center that is a really good shot blocker and a lob threat, and he's still very raw. Like, he didn't start playing basketball until very recently, and he's only 18 years old. So he definitely has all the makings of a guy that I would not be surprised he goes a lot higher than what people expect. Because he's been shooting up draft boards recently. And yeah, I mean, he's a guy that big, athletic, and that type of mold of center is always kind of intriguing to teams. And the Hawks, for their second first round pick, take a swing. Apparently, in the last few days, it's reported that they've kind of been looking at centers and big men, all that stuff. And so, why not them be the ones to take a chance on Beranger? Putting more size and athleticism next to Trae Young, being a shot block. You have Okongwu, who's really good defensively, but his only kind of weakness is that he's undersized. He's only like 6'9", but he plays bigger than what he is. Now getting another big that is bigger and can be kind of like maybe a typical big, like what Clint Capella did next to Trae Young, but maybe even a bigger version of Clint Capella. Like athletic, block shots, rebound, catch lobs. That's all you got to do next to Trae Young. Like, I think that I can absolutely see the Hawks taking a swing right here if he's on Beranger, if he's still available. And he's raw. It's gonna take a while for him to really develop. But if you're the Hawks, you're kind of okay with that because you have Okongwu right now. With the 23rd pick in the 2025 NBA draft, the New Orleans Pelicans select Asa Newell out of Georgia. Newell's a guy that started off really high on draft boards. That since I feel like has come down a little bit more as time has gone on. But Newell, I think, is still a really intriguing guy. 6'9", kind of power forward center at Georgia with a big wingspan. Energy, energy guy, hustles, plays very, very hard, which you like. Really solid athleticism, can run the floor very well. Swiss Army knife type of guy in terms of defensive end. Really moves his feet very well. Can guard a little bit on the perimeter. Can guard inside with his big wingspan. And offensively, he's an energy guy. Offensive rebounds, putbacks. Give him down, drop it down low to him. He could dunk it. Type of guy inside. It's very interesting for the Pelicans when you have Zion Williamson, but I think maybe their hope that Newell can potentially turn into a center. Maybe you could play him with Zion, and even though the spacing is not going to be very good at all, you still take a chance on an intriguing prospect that you think can bring a lot of defense and hustle and just energy. And he's one of the better prospects left on the board as well. So it might not be the most insane pick in terms of fit, and what the Pelicans, because the Pelicans, again, like I said, with their earlier pick, they're still very up in the air on what the heck is going to happen over there. But you pick Newell because he's a guy that's very intriguing. He can help out with maybe your lack of, because their big man play, power forward center play is not very good right now outside of Zion Williamson and Yves Missy. So you bring in another kind of energy big man. With the 24th pick in the 2025 NBA draft, the Oklahoma City Thunder select Ryan Kalkbrenner out of Creighton. I think this is just a really great pick for the Thunder. They get a guy in Kalkbrenner who is huge, 7'1", 7'6" wingspan, defensive presence. Is a really good defender at Creighton, blocks a lot of shots, just an interior presence. That doesn't really have to do too much for OKC. He did a lot at Creighton with the ball a little bit, getting him in the post, trying to shoot the three ball a little bit. But with OKC, a very simplified role. Just be big. Just be a 7-footer. Thunder kind of struggled with size a little bit in the playoff run, even though you do have Hartenstein and Holmgren. You don't really have too much big size out there on the court. And now you bring in a guy, Kalkbrenner, who's one of the bigger guys at this point in the draft. So you just bring him in. All he has to do is come in, block a couple shots, rebound the ball, and just be a 7-footer. And just do what 7-footers do. With the 25th pick in the 2025 NBA draft, the Orlando Magic select Liam McNeely out of UConn. Magic, our team that obviously we know needs perimeter shooting, and McNeely, brings that. He's young, 19. with decent size at 6'6", and he can just come in and be a shooter. Doesn't have to do too much right away early. Just come in, be a guy that can space the floor on the wing, and move his feet on defense. He's not an amazing defender, but he's also not a bad defender. He just looks like a guy that he just looks like he can project as a solid player. Hit some open shots, guard, maybe have the ball in his hands a little bit. And that's really all. He doesn't really need to do too much on Orlando because you have Paolo, Franz, Bane now. He has a very simplified role. Come in, hit open shots, you get them, and hold your own defensively. Not saying be an all defensive type of guy, but just don't be a guy that gets blown by all the time. And that's all you have to do. And I think McNeely can come in and can do that and finds a really solid home in Orlando. With the 26th pick in the 2025 NBA draft, the Brooklyn Nets select Nolan Traore out of France. Traore is a guy that at the start of the season and the start of mock drafts, he was a top 5, top 10 projected pick. He was killing it during the summer and all that stuff. Then as the season came on, he kind of fell, and now he's projected to be kind of a late first round type of guy. But Traore still has some intriguing things. At 6'3" point guard, that can really handle the ball. Really good IQ, could be kind of a floor general guy that also can get to the basket. A crafty finisher. He's not jumping out the gym athleticism, or he's not super insane speed, but he's just really crafty, consistent. Being able to quick first step, get to the rim. The big question mark is going to be his 3-point shooting. Especially nowadays in the NBA, guys that need Traore's kind of guy that kind of needs the ball in his hands a little bit to work. Guys like that now need to be able to hit the free ball and create. And the big question mark is, can Traore create consistently and shoot the ball enough consistently at the NBA level? But again, like I've said with many Brooklyn Nets picks, if you're the Nets here, why not take a chance on Traore? You don't really have a lot of point guard play for the future. You picked up Fears, but why not get a guy in Traore who's a little bit different than Fears with the way he plays, but a guy that was projected to be very high. He's still only 19 years old, a young player in this draft, and you come in and hopefully maybe try to find something with Traore. So I think this is just a pretty solid pick if you're Brooklyn right here. With the 27th pick in the 2025 NBA draft, the Brooklyn Nets select Will Riley out of Illinois. Riley's a guy that has pretty intriguing things going on with him. As a young 19-year-old with some good size at 6'8", he's a guy that can play with the ball in his hands and play with off the ball as well. Guy that has a good feel for the game, can shoot the 3 ball very well. I think he shot 40%. Not 40% from 3, but he shot the ball well from 3 at Illinois. Can also be a guy that can move off the ball, shoot off the ball, can get to the basket, make some solid passes. Like a guy that looks like he could project to have a really solid offensive game, but also being a pretty decent defender, even though he's not crazy. He's 6'8" with a 6'8" wingspan, so he's not insane arms and length. But Riley's still very young, still kind of very big question marks around him in terms of his weight. He's very kind of slim right now. Can he develop and put on more weight? What really is his role offensively? Is he a guy that can, play with? Is he like a 2? Is he a 3? Is he a wing? Is he a complementary piece? Kind of a little bit, still a lot of question marks around how good is he going to be on the defensive end. There's a lot of question marks. He's still kind of raw at 19 years old. But again, if you're the Brooklyn Nets, why not take a chance on a guy that looks like he can fit into this team, be a complementary piece, but maybe have a little bit more to his game as time goes on. With the 28th pick in the 2025 NBA draft, the Boston Celtics select Maxime Reynaud out of Stanford. This is a very interesting pick for the Celtics. I think going big man here would be kind of not make sense, but I could see it happening with Porzingis potentially being on the move and Luke Kornet going for agency, all that stuff. And then bringing Reynaud, a guy that maybe doesn't fit that mold of what Kornet does, but he's a 7-footer. Big 7-footer, 22 years old, so you might be able to throw him in right away. And the 3-point shooting, shot 44% from 3 last year at Stanford, which is crazy. Has really good shooting touch for a big, because he shot well in his free throws as well. Really solid rebounder, big post presence, can score in the paint as well, not just a catch and shoot type of big man, but can score in the paint as well, can rebound. And I think just brings another big body to Boston that can also stretch the floor. Something they don't really have besides Porzingis, but how his injury concerns, and Porzingis might not be on the team by the start of next season. So you bring in just a big body, that maybe can be able to play right away. With the 29th pick in the 2025 NBA draft, the Phoenix Suns select Cam Jones out of Marquette. Cam, this guy that's been on Marquette for a while, 23 years old, one of the older prospects in the draft, but maybe could come in and play right well. Just a solid guard that can handle the ball. Really solid 3-point shooter. Didn't have a great shooting year by the numbers last year, but has been known as a pretty solid 3-point shooter. A lefty that can also create, and also showed a lot of solid passing ability last year with Tyler Kolek leaving to the NBA. He became kind of the lead guard and showed that he can do that as well. Will also be able to get to the basket and score. I think he's just a really solid overall basketball player. I think for the Suns, they need some point guard ability and some guys that are solid basketball players. I think Jones could come in right away and maybe be a guy that can play early, with being an older guy and can help the Suns right now. And with the 30th pick in the 2025 NBA draft, the LA Clippers select Noah Penda out of France. Penda is a guy that is a really good defender early on. A big body, 20-year-old wing that really good defender. Good hands, really high IQ guy, just a really solid all-around basketball player. There's a guy that could come in right away and be a solid defender. He can cut, kind of has that Swiss Army knife type of style game. The big question is going to be the 3-point shot. He's not an amazing 3-point shooter or a great 3-point shooter yet, so the 3-point shot is going to be the big skill on, if he can really survive a long time in the NBA. Or is he just going to be a guy that can just come in, play a little bit of defensive minutes here and there? But if he can develop and be a 3-point shooter, he can be good. And on a Clipper team that has really good wing defenders all around, he doesn't really need to come in and play right away. He can develop that 3-point shot a little bit later on. And, the Clippers are already, the Clippers are trying to win. So he's not a guy that has to come in right away and be a big piece of that team. He can kind of sit on the bench and develop, kind of like how all the Clippers do in the last few drafts, where they just take a guy and he just sits on the bench for a little while. Yeah, that's going to be it for today. Hope you guys enjoyed. Once again, if you do like the content around here, consider subscribing, liking, turn on notifications, doing all stuff like that. I'd really appreciate it. It really helps out a whole lot. And yeah, I'll see you guys tomorrow.